Hey, bestie. Can I ask you something a little bit bold today? What if you could choose? What if you could choose who you want to become, how you respond, how you heal, how you show up, no matter what's happened in your past? Now, I'm not talking about pretending like life hasn't been hard. I'm talking about power. Because here's what most people don't realize: choice is your superpower. You can't control everything, but you can control what you do next. You can control your attitude and your effort. And friend, that changes everything. Today, you and I are going to talk about that freedom that comes when you reclaim your ability to choose. From your thoughts to your habits to your identity, you have more influences than you think. So let's go. Let's talk about this whole choosing thing. I don't know if you know who Viktor Frankl is, but he was a Holocaust survivor and a psychotherapist. And he said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. We have the power to choose. You have the power to choose your response. If someone like a Holocaust survivor can say that, and I think that a Holocaust survivor has been through more trauma than the majority of us, maybe not all of us, but the majority of us at this day and age, then I think he probably has something worth hearing. So many people, and it's easy to do this, by the way, so many people live in reaction. We live in default mode, and this is just how I am mode. But choice breaks the cycle. I'm just going to tell you what my internal dialogue said because this is just me being real to you. I was like, oh, nothing says victim mentality like, oh, this is just how I am. It's a picture of a person that doesn't want to change. This is just how I am. If you say that, I'm not attacking you. What I am saying to you is you can say something different. You can choose different. I think about in my work with my clients, and a lot of times, at least the beginning of our work, people say things like, they make me, or this makes me, or they feel really powerless. They look at their situation, circumstance, whatever it is, and they look at it and they're like, yeah, I can't change. I can't be different. And here's the thing: all it takes is a choice. I like to tell on myself. So, what I'm actually about to tell you is pretty raw because it happened yesterday. So, Josh and I are preparing for our next baby, and it requires me to go to Colorado, and because that's where our babies are, and it requires me to fly out and do this workup. And I got some news, which I'm not going to talk about today, but I got some news in my workup that was really discouraging to me. It caught me off guard, and I wasn't expecting it. No one freak out. I am a-okay. But basically there's a surgery in my future. I'll know for sure when I talk to the important people that are involved in this, but most likely anyways, there's a surgery in my future. And I was trying to figure out all the things that were going on and trying to understand it. And I had a plethora of feelings: anger, fear, sadness, confusion. And I worked myself through. I want to be honest. Like, I want to be clear. I am not a robot. I am not all right, no negative feelings ever happen here. And we are only unicorns and rainbows and bunnies that poop butterflies. That's not real life. It's not real life. So yesterday, got on Dr. Google. Please, if you ever are dealing with stuff, I don't know that Google is necessarily your friend, but nonetheless, I got on Google and I started trying to understand what was going on with me and kind of what my next steps are, and talk to the nurse there. And uh, then I made an appointment with a specialist in this area. And I had feelings. I had lots of feelings about it, and just going, okay, God, like, nothing in this area of my life ever seems to be simple. I don't understand that. And I had lots of feelings. And then I had a choice. I had a choice to choose where I was going to focus. So there are some things within my control. So I chose to focus on the things that were within my control. And I chose to bring myself back to center, that everything is going to be okay. Okay is relative, by the way, or subjective is what I should say. Okay is subjective. You can be okay with an outcome that you don't want. And so I was just like, okay, well, I all in all, I'm going to be okay. Everything is going to be just fine. There, Lord willing, are more babies in my future. There's just some other parts to this that I haven't chosen. And I had to sit with that. I had to sit with myself in it. I had to take action. Again, control. I controlled what I could control, which was my attitude and my effort. And this is why this is important, by the way. And by the way, I want to be really clear. I text my husband and said, I'm freaking out. Okay. I text my husband, he's my bestie, and I said, I'm freaking out. Uh, I, I, Again, I was super caught off guard. And so I was like, I'm freaking out. And I am so grateful that, he also brought me back to center, but ultimately I brought myself back to center of, okay, I'm going to choose. I want you to recognize this. I'm telling you this story on myself because I don't want you to think that, again, nothing bad ever happens in my life or somehow I'm some sort of miraculous robot. That would be a lie. So I took control of my attitude. I focused it where I knew I needed to focus. I focused on gratitude. I focused on the future that I believe that I'm going to have, hope, powerful thing. I focused on taking some action steps that I could control. And I internally accepted that my future timelines are probably changed. And I don't like when my timelines change. And in true fashion in my life, nothing has gone as planned. So here we are again. So that I'm always like, oh, Brittany, that was cute that you thought that it was going to go this way. So I'm telling you the story just so you know, this is the real. This is what happens. Uh, I want to lead into positive psychology tells us that people who believe that they have control over their lives, also known as an internal locus of control, experience more well-being, less stress, and higher resilience. And you guys know that I love NLP. And NLP talks about this in terms of like our patterns in our brain, that our brains are just pattern based. When we change those patterns, we change things. And by the way, we can choose to change patterns. And then Stoicism teaches that we can't control what happens, like yesterday, but we can always control how we respond. And internally, I had lots of feelings flood me very quickly. And then I needed to choose how to respond. You see, friend, choice is the hinge on which everything swings: healing, growth, change, peace. So, if, friend, you've been stuck, overwhelmed, in victim mode, this episode is for you. It's here to remind you you get to choose again. You can make a different choice today. You can wake up tomorrow and choose differently. You can, whatever it is, you can choose again. You see, we are not robbed of choice. We keep having them over and over and over. You get to choose. And I actually hope that that empowers you. Sometimes people get bogged down by the amount of choices that they have in life. But when you really think about the two things that I can control, my attitude and my effort, that I can choose those, well, it makes a lot of those other choices very, very simple. So let's talk a little bit more about what this is, what this concept is. So in psychology, there is this concept called the illusion of powerlessness, that most people don't realize how often they've given away their power. They make me. Just that phrase alone, as you can tell, that's a thing for me. They make me. I said it like that because my daughter is like, you made me sad. Because I told her she couldn't have, I don't know, candy at bedtime or something like that. You make me sad, mommy. And I'm like, oh, baby, you feel sad, but I didn't make you sad. And she's 6, and you may go, all right, Dr. Britt, like that's intense. But I really want her to learn that somebody cannot make her feel something. You're choosing to be sad. I totally get that you would choose that and you would feel that way. And you're choosing to be sad about this because mommy said, which is most of the time, not right now. It's pretty almost always yes, just later. It's just delayed. Our language is also a part of this illusion of powerlessness where we say things like I have to, I can't. Again, that's just how I am. Those are linguistic cues to our mind that we've forgotten that we can choose, that we've chosen to not choose. Isn't that interesting? NLP teaches us that language reveals belief and belief drives behavior. So if you say something like, I can't or I have to, well, then you're driving behavior. People will say things like, I can't leave my job. Well, yes, you can. You can totally leave your job. You also might be choosing other consequences in the meantime. Maybe you're without a job for a while, or you have to tap into your savings, or whatever it is. But there's still a choice. I can't, my boss is so mean. I just can't quit. I have to have this job. Sure, you can. It's just choice. Stoicism, there's a quote from, I'm sure that I could find the one who said it, but it is, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. We create these scenarios in our mind and then we suffer. We create anxiety, by the way, is totally exists. Now, somebody's maybe might, mean comment me after this, but here's the truth. Anxiety exists in the future. It's something, what we fear. Let me say this differently. Anxiety is created from what we fear happening in the future. We're anxious that something is going to happen in the future. That is imagination. That's imagination. That's not reality. It's not reality. It's imagination. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. So I'm going to talk to you in a little bit about how we challenge these things. You've heard me say this before, that the unconscious mind runs roughly 95% of our unconscious mind, 95% of our patterns. But once something becomes conscious, you can change it. So you get rid of baggage that's connected to that. Once your baggage is gone, your brain is able to form new pathways, aka neuroplasticity. I'm all about it. That we can change the way that our brain is wired. We can change it by choice. We can change it by embracing something that doesn't feel so good. We can embrace it with things that really drive it, like gratitude. We can lean into what I mentioned in last week's episode of that positive psychology hope theory, where we have a goal, we have a belief, agency that you can get there, that there's multiple pathways to get there, and that choosing your response builds agency. I think back about yesterday. I have a goal to create more children. I if two is all if two is all that God blesses me with, then I will celebrate my two. But I have a goal to create more children. I have a belief that I can get there. Now, my pathways to making babies have there have been so many. There are pathways to that. But when I choose my response to this, which I chose my response to this, it builds agency. It builds agency. I want you to recognize that we build agency when we choose. It's why research talks about how creating confident kids is a you have to help them be able to do the things that they can do. You don't do stuff for them that they can already do for themselves. Agency. We want to make sure that we are fostering agency internally. Your identity is also a choice. I'm going to do an episode coming up on identity, but your identity is a choice. It's not just who you've been, it's who you're becoming. And from an NLP perspective, there's a strong force in the human personality that has the need to stay consistent with who we believe that we are. Last week, I talked about creating a new narrative. You may need to create a new narrative of who you are. You might need to choose that. You might need to choose a new belief, get a new story, a new standard. You can say, that's not who I was. That's who I was. That's not who I'm becoming. You have choice. The decisions you make today affect your tomorrow. Very simply. So, how do we start to do this thing? Because I know that there's at least one person listening that goes, man, like, all right, I try to do the thing and then I sabotage it. Or then I do it, but then it feels uncomfortable and I don't do it again. Or like I try to set boundaries and those are really hard. So I don't do them. I don't like the negative feelings that come with them. Well, instead of focusing on all the things, we just focus on one thing at a time. So there's a couple, I'm not going to call them steps because they don't need to be followed in order necessarily, but there are some key aspects to this. The first is that you get curious. How do you get to where you're choosing? First, you get curious. You need to ask yourself, where have I been operating in autopilot? What belief is guiding this decision? Is this belief true or just familiar? I don't know if you've ever heard that the phrase, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, which by the way, the devil you don't know is the one that you created in your mind. So we often stay in situations and circumstances that are uncomfortable for us, that are painful, that are creating harm in our life because it's the discomfort that we know. But friend, I'm here to tell you that you can choose differently. You have the ability to choose differently. You can live somewhere else. You can have another job. You can break up with that boyfriend. You can move to Timbuktu. You can choose. You can set boundaries. You can choose to dress differently. You can change the music that you listen to, the food that goes into your mouth. You can choose. Sometimes we get so bogged down by every single decision that we don't make any one. I tell clients all the time, you just need to focus on the next right decision. What's the next right choice? That's it. That's the one I'm making. That's the only one I'm focused on. I think about when I don't want to say that my marriage was falling apart, but it was I'm like, but it was in shambles. I don't know. That's such a hard thing to say sometimes looking back on it, but we were in a really tough place. Gosh, I had to focus on the next right decision. I had to get curious about myself, where I'd been in autopilot, what was guiding my decisions. I needed to have awareness because that was the first step. And then I needed to take whatever the next right step was. And I think a lot of times too, we find that next right step, whatever that is, by getting quiet with ourselves. Prayer is a huge part of that. Consulting your unconscious mind, really getting quiet. In order to do those things, you have to get quiet. So I want to encourage you in that, of just the power of focusing on just one thing. I think about people who try to lose weight, and I just use the physical body because I think it's easy. You try to lose weight and you're focused on the 30 pounds that you need to lose and all the meals that you're going to have to change. Although someone might say give up, between now and then, the workouts you're going to have to do. It's just the next, like today, I need to work out. And then after I do that, I work out in the morning. My next right decision is uh, something high in protein. And then my next right decision after that might be stretching when I can between clients, or jumping on the trampoline with my kids because that's active. Whatever it is, I need to focus on the next right decision. That's it, the next right one. We also need to interrupt the old patterns. You do something new, something small, doesn't have to be big. Again, next right. And then you take, maybe you take a different route. Maybe you say no where you'd normally say yes. You stay calm where you'd usually snap. When we interrupt a reaction, it actually creates space. And in that space is where your freedom is to choose something different. Sometimes the something new, the pattern interrupt, is a really deep breath. That if something happens and we just take a really deep breath, it allows our brain to catch up and to choose something different. That again, I just come back to physical because it's easy. But you're opening your fridge and you're like, am I going to eat this or am I going to eat that? And you go, okay, well, I can choose. Am I choosing for what I want right now, or am I choosing for Brittany tomorrow? What Brittany wants right now is most often different than what Brittany wants tomorrow. So what am I going to choose? And giving yourself that choice of, this is what I'm choosing. If I choose this, I'm choosing the comfort of the moment, which again could be setting boundaries. If I choose not to set a boundary, I'm choosing the comfort of the moment, or the devil I know. Uh, but if I choose to set a boundary, then I'm also going to choose the discomfort of the moment, but maybe the comfort of the future, or creating becoming a more fit version of myself, or whatever it is. You have to recognize that it's something small. And if we even go back to what my first point was, which is getting curious, and curious involves questions. What am I going to choose here? Why would I choose this over this if what I say that I want is this? And if you'll get curious, one, it'll help you choose, but it'll also help you figure out what's going on internally. The more you know about what's going on internally, the more choice you know that you need to take in a certain direction. And I talk a lot about this, so I'm not really going to stay here very long. But a lot of times we do need to release the baggage. I did an entire episode on it. I will link it in the show notes. But we need to release our baggage because sometimes we're sabotaging ourselves, getting in the way of what we actually want to have. And then you choose again and again on purpose. You choose how you speak to yourself, how you show up, even when it's hard. You choose a new identity, even if you're still growing into it. You have the power to choose. You have the power to choose. And 10 minutes ago, you might have chosen poorly. I don't know, maybe you yelled at your spouse or something. Well, you can choose to go back and make it right. You can choose your attitude. You know what? I'm not going to be that way. I can't tell you how many times I've said to myself, Brittany, you're not going to be that way. We do not act like this. This is not who we are. This is not who you are. So you're going to go do something different. The Stoics say that, this is a quote, that you have the power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Yesterday, I had an event happen. That's cute. Yesterday, I had an event happen that I wasn't expecting, and I had to get power over my mind. I had to come back to my own internal resources. Now, that doesn't get rid of my feelings necessarily, but also I have control over my mind. Friend, you have control over your mind. How you speak to yourself, how you show up, the identity that you have, the behaviors that follow that. Most of our choice happens in our mind and then it follows behaviorally. Again, I come back to the person at the refrigerator. Do I want this or do I want this? By the way, maybe the initial choice happened in the grocery store where it's like, I'm not going to buy that. Or I'm going to Instacart it. So I just make my list and I only put on what's on my list. And I choose not to go because I choose not to pull something off the shelf that is not what I want. Choose. Choose. You can choose. You have the power of choice. No one makes you. And by the way, it is super disempowering. I don't know. I mean, I know I've said it in my life. It's super disempowering to say somebody or something makes you whatever. It's like, no, this happened and I feel this about it, but it didn't make me that way. I just feel that. Yeah. And then visualization, again, is a superpower. I talk about this, I don't know, often. That you need to see in your mind you choosing something differently. So, in the example of going to the refrigerator, and you're like, I want this, but I need to eat this. And you have these two different choices internally. You know yourself. You need to visualize you going to the refrigerator and pulling out the eggs instead of the bagel and cream cheese. Unless you eat for your macros and then maybe your macros are bagels and cream cheese. Whatever. I'm being a little bit silly over here. My point is, you know what it is for you. So you need to visualize that in the morning, I'm going to go get breakfast, and my breakfast, I'm going to make some eggs, and I'm going to have an avocado, and I'm going to have a couple slices of leftover steak, whatever. You need to visualize that that's what you do instead of whatever it is that you are trying to do differently. You want to do what NLP calls future pacing. This is experiencing it in your imagination before it happens in real life. And remember, the brain does not know the difference between real and imagined. In some ways, it's kind of terrifying, and in other ways, it's amazing that the brain does not know the difference. Utilize your brain. I can't, it's been a while since I've read it, so I don't want to overly mess it up. I might mess it up a little bit, not overly. That people that visualize themselves lifting heavier weight, for example, these are people that lift heavy on a regular basis, that they see themselves lifting a heavier weight and they get there. Their mind actually helps them get there. It was wild that it was like the person visualizing it was as if they had done it. I don't remember exactly how that worked, but anyways, it's so powerful. Your brain is powerful. I wish I had it so I could link it, but I remember reading it, just feeling mind blown. When you do this, when you future pace, when you're visualizing you showing up for yourself, setting that boundary, doing that thing, and you're like, yep, I did that. I said the thing that I needed to say to that person, and I decided how our relationship was going to be moving forward. And I felt really good about it. I saw it in my mind. Guess what? It's a lot easier to do when it actually happens, too. And what this does is it builds optimism and agency internally. The more you see her, the her that chooses whatever it is that she needs to choose, the easier it is to become her. That's it. I have had a lot of practice shifting out of negative into positive. Yesterday took me a hot minute to get there. I think I uh, probably was about 2 hours or so to shift myself. I mostly because there were just I was lacking in understanding, and so in my lacking in understanding, trying to figure out what was happening. But either way, I think it took me about 2 hours to really get myself to like, okay, whatever it is, whatever the next steps are, I'm going to get through this. You can do it. The more you practice it, the more you become her, the more you see her in your mind, the more you become her, whoever she is, that you know that you need to be, that you want to be, that is you. The more you see her, the more you become her. Now, per my usual, I've got some questions for you. So, first one is, where in my life have I been operating like I don't have a choice? Second, what am I choosing today, right now, that I can change? What am I choosing today that I can change it? Third, what new belief or identity would I like to choose on purpose? And if I believed, number four, if I believed that I were free to choose again, to choose at all, some of you, not just again, at all, how would I show up differently? I hope that you really do take time to pause and reflect on these questions, especially if you're someone that's like, I have totally abdicated my power of choice and I want it back. I want it back. Friend, you're not powerless. You're not stuck. You are not at the mercy of your past, the opinions of others, or even your old patterns. You are the creator, a co author, a chooser of your own destiny. So today, let's stop living in default mode. Let's start deciding. Your peace, a choice. Your confidence, a choice. Your next chapter, still being written by you. Also a choice. Come join the Besties group. Come hang out with me. If you're ready to release those old patterns and get into the next version of you, hit me up for a breakthrough session. Because, bestie, you have always had the choice. So let's choose something beautiful together. Until next week.